Hey y'all, it's another video starring your very favorite teacher, Mr. G. Today we're looking at food additives. So I'm just going to go through the PowerPoint I created, the notes and whatnot. There's not too many bells and whistles on this one, not a whole bunch of extra videos and whatnot. It's just the notes. Maybe I can make my picture a little smaller. No, I can move it around. Whatever. Okay. Let's go. Food additives. So probably a term you've heard before, but you might not be too familiar. But really, a food additive could be pretty much anything, any kind of ingredient that's added to the food, whether it be something that's actually part of the food, or if it's a chemical that's added to it to help make it to you in the market. The FDA actually has a list of over 3,000 different food ingredients. That's of approved food ingredients, things that are considered GRAD, generally recognized as, it's GRAS, generally recognized as safe. Anyway, if we're going to be technical, a food additive can be any substance that is added to food during processing, production, treatment, packaging, storage, or transportation of the food. So at any point, something that comes in contact or become a part of that food is going to be known as an additive. That includes coloring as well. And sometimes people separate that out as food additives and food colorings. But I mean, the coloring's added too, so to me it's the same thing. Alright, we have three main purposes for food additives. They don't put them in there just to make you suspicious about what's going into your food. The food additives that we use all have, there's a particular reason that they're in there. Most of the ones that are put there on purpose anyway. For preserving your food. We just talked about preservation of food, and some of those things that were in there, like in the curing section of our preservation lesson, talking about the nitrates and salt and sugar. All those can be considered food additives used to preserve food. But there's other ones as well that, or in that particular lesson, there's a whole bunch. So that's going to be one thing, to preserve that freshness, to make it sure it's safe for you to eat, get rid of those harmful microbes. Another reason for food additives, improve nutrition. You probably see this in, especially our food at school, where they say it's like enriched flour, uses enriched flour, or something like that. It's because they've added vitamins and minerals, nutrients to that food. Either A, because some of the food loses its nutritional value during the processing, or just to improve the nutrition of the food in general and help, like the children or whoever is eating it, to make sure that they get all the vitamins. Another example of that would be vitamin D milk. If you get the vitamin D milk, if that vitamin D is added to the milk, so that you, I guess, if you're not going outside, not making your vitamin D, you can get it there. Taste, texture, and appearance is our last reason for food additives. And this encompasses a whole wide array of different additives. You might have like artificial versus natural flavorings to make sure you have that flavor in that food that you want. The appearance, they'll add acids and chemicals and whatnot to help preserve the color of foods, or to add color to your food, because without food coloring, really, things that are cherry flavor wouldn't be red, or grape flavor wouldn't be purple. And even though some things might be naturally red, after processing, those reds, those natural reds and those natural colors don't really last so well. So a lot of times, that's why they have to put in those artificial colors. Let's see. And texture is another big thing. We've talked about making colloids and gels and things like that in our class before. So a lot of those thickeners, as we call them, like carrageenan and xanthan gum and the other gums that we looked at, those would count as that kind of food additive. The main a main agency involved in approving additives in the United States is the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. It's really their job. If any company comes forward, they want to put something in food, they're going to make a new product, and here's a new substance that they're going to put in that food, they have to get it approved by the FDA. And that approval is going to come based on what's the composition and the properties of the substance that they're putting in there, what is the amount that would be typically consumed. Typically, if we're talking about additives, there's very, very small amounts of things. It's not, the main body of the thing that you're eating. And what are the health effects or other safety factors that go with this additive? And some food additives, as mentioned earlier, are known as generally recognized as safe. Things like salt and sugar, things that have been used for hundreds, thousands of years. Particularly anything that was used before the 1951, when this whole policy was created. They were already considered safe, and they were already considered safe. So some of those substances have actually been grandfathered in. But again, when new information comes forward, then those policies can change. The USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, also has a job in food additives. Anything that falls into the meat and poultry industry, hormones and whatnot that are added to those animals, particularly when they're alive, that has to there's a kind of a joint venture between the USDA and the FDA. Where they talk to each other, they both agree, if something is safe or not safe, and if it's safe, then it's approved for use. I'm going to go into a few of the different types of food additives. We have intentional or direct versus incidental or indirect. Most of your food additives, especially the ones we've been talking about already, are going to be direct food additives. Things that are put there on purpose for a specific use, like xanthan gum being added to improve that texture. But we also have additives known as incidental or indirect, and those become part of the food through the packaging, storage, or handling. So if you're packaging your water inside of a plastic bottle, little bits of plastic are going to be getting into your water. That's just a fact. That's about what's going to happen. So those items that are in the packaging and in the processing also have to get approved by the FDA to make sure that those tiny minute bits of whatever it is, plastic and all kinds of packaging and processing chemicals, those have to be considered safe as well. Then we have our natural versus artificial ingredients. A natural ingredient is exactly what it sounds like. It's really anything that comes from nature. That includes natural colorings or other natural flavorings. If you see that natural on there, it means it comes from some source of living thing, some natural source. Like the example I have here is beet powder being used as a coloring, as a red food coloring. So sometimes you'll see that in those more like organic foods and whatnot. We use natural coloring, and they're never quite as red, but it's natural and maybe more healthy. Maybe. And then also you often see the artificial ingredients, artificial flavorings, artificial colorings. Those are things that are either not regularly found or at all found in nature, or they are produced in a way that's not necessarily natural. Like a synthetic substance would be like red dye number 40, one of the most prevalent dyes in the world for food and whatnot. It's actually made from petroleum, but it's considered safe, and it's in all of the things in our life that we eat. But then we also have things that are actually natural but are produced in a more industrialized setting or lab setting because it's easier to mass produce it that way, like vitamin C, for example, which I think we can make it from mold or something like that. That's also called ascorbic acid. The citric acid is that we find in a lot of our foods. Though, yeah, it will come from citrus, but it's much easier to actually grow it from mold. So they use black mold to grow, to harvest citric acid. That's another example of that would be considered an artificial ingredient, though technically citric acid is a natural thing. And whatever the case is, ingredients always have to be approved by the FDA. And that's it. I got all this information from the FDA website, and there's you can find more information out there as well. But this is a pretty good site. You can visit it yourself if you want a little bit more info. I'll be putting other links soon to other videos that we're going to watch and get some more background information. Cool. Thanks.